You say Dad.AI.
Dad.AI. This is Dad.AI.
Now say it really clearly. This is Dad.AI.
I can't do that.
Try it.
This is Dad.AI.
Yeah, it is.
Dad.AI.
Welcome to Dad.AI, the #1 podcast at the intersection of tech and parenting. Brian, good evening, my friend.
It's always a pleasure, Jakey boy.
Kids are down. Let's do this.
Fire me up. All right. So on that, let's get into a nice round of bull versus bear. And I've heard a lot of feedback from people that I'm always the skeptic. You're always the pro ChatGPT guy. So we're gonna do a little game of opposites here. And I'm gonna take bull. You're gonna be taking bear. You're gonna be the downer. I'm gonna be the ecstatic guy. You can feel the energy tonight. So on our first topic, we're gonna go into AI tutors for your kids. And this is coming out of Alpha School. And I want to read this to you before we get into it. Alpha School has garnered attention for its groundbreaking approach that enables students to master 4 subjects: reading, math, social studies, and English in just 2 hours each morning. The rest of the day is catered to kids developing leadership skills, enabling students to explore their interests while building essential life skills. So, Jakey boy, bull or bear on this AI tutor for kids?
What choice do I have? I'm the bear.
What's your
And
case?
I can tell you all the cities that Alpha School has offered it. Not because I looked it up, but because I've researched this already significantly going into this and am incredibly interested. But I'm very happy to take the bear because I see both sides of this. All right. So look, Alpha School has offered pre-K through 4th grade, which is a critical time in a child's growth and education. And it's also like a time of socialization, of adoption of social norms, whatever. And I just feel like this is like the classic overreach of parenting of every other generation. Like, of course, we're going to throw them in front of an AI tutor and expect them to become some like magicians out of it. Like kids from pre-K to 4th grade, like they should just be hanging out, learning some stuff, but like not putting too much pressure on them, focusing on socialization. Like AI is going to make soft skills more important than hard skills when our kids go to college. Let's not like throw them into like, 10th grade science as a 3rd grader, unless they want to be. And I also think that the part of that, like the 2 hours a day of doing that, like do it at home if your kid's that interested, but let's not like throw them in the next like hip thing, like Montessori or whatever this is. Come on.
I feel how painful that was for you to take that side of the argument. You can feel it in your plums. But look, I think it's interesting. It's timely because Sid and I are talking about schools for Sloan, right? And we've gone on a bunch of tours, as I know you guys have as well. And one of the things that we recently went to a farm school, and it's only outdoors, right? The kids do not see the indoors. And I thought it was interesting. They're learning life skills about growing their garden, yada yada. But I'm taking the bull, right, on this one. And I think it's actually interesting going back to when we were kids. I thought it was painful to go through school and like how many wasted hours you had in a day. It wasn't all about socialization. You spend some time coloring and some, doing your number tables. But at the end of the day, I felt like it was a very inefficient use of time. And so for me, it's like looking at how you can maximize the hours of a day. And if you're spending 2 hours mastering core concepts and then spending the rest of your 6 hours, 4 hours, whatever at school, that's time that you can never get back. And so if you compound that over 18 years, or I know you said K through whatever, 4th grade, that's a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills that you can ascertain over, whether or not it's 4 years, 8 years, however, whatever math breakdown you want to do. So I'm huge proponent on this. Sid and I have talked about this. Like, I do think AI is going to be part of the school curriculum forever and moving forward. And so I'm on the wagon here.
Yeah, I looked, I double checked. It's K-6, and they also have a 7th to 8th grade one.
Uh-huh.
But like you used words like maximize and efficiency and competencies. And like these are like like 6-year-olds. Like let's let them have some fun and draw themselves.
I'm going to bring up a next one. AI-powered Barbies and Legos. This one is coming from Anthropic's co-founder, Jack Clark. And he actually said, and again, I'm going to read this one for you. So he says, I've had this thought. I wish you could talk to your bunny occasionally so that the bunny would provide you some entertainment while I'm putting the dishes away or making you dinner or something. Often you just need another person to be there to help you wrangle the child and keep them interested. I think lots of parents would do this. Would you? Are you on board? Or I know we got to do this role play here.
Yeah, I'll go bear here. I saw the movie Megan. Did you see the movie Megan? Oh my God, this dog, like this AI doll, like kills a bunch of people while maximizing, like while following its core instructions and maximizing against its goals. Look, that's not going to happen. But obviously, this is just a alternative parent, just like TV is an alternative parent, which has its pros and its cons, obviously. And like we've talked about with other forms of AI for kids, it's going to be designed to be engaging. It's going to be designed that when the kid starts to get bored, it's going to try to bring them back. Yep. And it's going to like allow the kid to kind of disassociate with reality and kind of have this alternative reality, this buddy that they can form a bond with that, might be useful in the short term, but like might have some real like long-term social implications in the long term. Like these kids are so vulnerable. They're apt to like fall in love with this bunny and become obsessed with this bunny and have weird like connection with this inanimate object. And I just can't, I would not let my kid, actually, like not even just because I'm forced to be a bear, like wouldn't let my kid have this bunny without some serious data coming out around the benefits.
I mean, again, you could feel me probably salivating about taking the bear on that one. Go touch some grass, get outside. Don't go play with a real bunny.
So you're washing the dishes. You want your kid just to go by themselves outside?
It's a bizarre. I mean, under my watchful eye, I'm quick. But so playing bowl in this case, it brings me back to when we were kids and you had a Tamagotchi, and that dopamine hit was like, oh, your Tamagotchi went to the bathroom. You got to do something for it. Like, but look, it taught us a lot of skills of like caretaking. It taught us, even just development for people that got into gaming early. Like I think of that of early on when you're a child, gaming, Tamagotchis, even Legos, right? You got to build. And so the more sophisticated these things are, it could expand your knowledge. It could expand your imagination. I'm with you though. Always need some guardrails. I do not want to just give my kid a bunny and be like, off to the races, go have some fun. So I'll again, I like to take bull here just because I think the imagination piece is pretty interesting.
All right, fair. All right, let me give you the last one. This is one that I really actually do feel very mixed on, and I'm proud to take the bear case on. The question is, will AI save our planet from like a climate change perspective, or will it do irreversible damage? It's coming on the heels of a recent announcement from Meta that they're going to be reviving a nuclear plant in Illinois, following similar moves by Amazon, Google, Microsoft. So now every large foundational model provider, AI company, data center provider has a deal with a large nuclear facility, bringing on previously unused power to try to power and satisfy the demand that there is for AI. So, Brian, what's your bull case for AI will save the planet?
I mean, this one's brought to you from again, talking about efficiency, right? And I think it goes back to there's been so many examples of AI being able to optimize energy consumption in buildings and transportation. Like you see it even, Google and Amazon announced this recently, like Google specifically, where Google AI was able to reduce the energy needed to cool its data centers by 40%. So that's an interesting fun fact. But then you look at some of the pollution monitoring and optimization, like you can understand different cyclical patterns to basically improve the way that our lives are run, from our thermostats to our trash pickup and recycling efficiency, to make sure that the right objects are getting routed to trash versus recycle. So I look at it from an efficiency perspective. We're still probably a decade away from realizing those gains. But I think once some of these laggards, again, municipalities, they're usually slow to adopt this type of technology. But I do think from a city and waste management perspective, we will get there.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit optimistic. I think that Jevons paradox is like, as a resource becomes more efficient, aggregate demand for that resource increases.
Yeah.
As AI models get smarter, total demand and also require less energy, total demand and total energy will be increased because there'll be more use cases for it. And I think that although these large providers have this kind of lofty goal of using cleaner energy, there's going to be, especially internationally, dirty energy powering these data centers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk of nuclear disaster. Like there's a reason that the nuclear reactors are taken offline, which I'm a fan of nuclear energy, but there's also that risk to it. And then just like more broadly, like when I look at AI usage today, like so much of it is such baloney. Like this week, there was this like trend of like stormtrooper selfie videos that are on
100%.
the internet. And I love them, but they're not a good use of energy. And we know like VO3 is the most compute-intensive AI product right now. And people are just making thousands of these videos using so much energy for this like fun meme thing. Even like vibe coding is mostly just like fun hobby stuff. Like it's creating a lot more use of energy, but it's not necessarily like an efficient use of energy to make the world better.
It's
yes,
beyond wasteful.
Yeah.
And that's where like I couldn't agree more on that. Like in our space, right, we talk about throwaway code. Like you used to not want to develop throwaway code. Now because of vibe coding, you're like, cost me nothing. And there are implications, there are repercussions for some of this waste that is happening. And I think if you make the cost of admission to create a VO video more prohibitive, you're going to get less waste, but there's other implications there as well. So.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the newswire. What do we got today?
So this is more of a macro topic because it really is talking about, have we as human beings in society lost control of AI? And so this one actually came from the Wall Street Journal, and it discussed several scenarios, one of which was when Claude Opus, a new model from Anthropic, came out. And basically what ended up happening was the model was willing to blackmail an engineer regarding extramarital affairs if the model was shut down. And so, look, this was prior to the model getting into production, so this was not live in the wild, but it just showed how sophisticated these things can get when, again, the AI is willing to, because they have the history on what the engineers are working on. They have all of their inboxes, they have all of their chats, they have all of their insights. And so, God forbid this was actually a real situation where the AI could threaten an engineer, a senior leader, for something. It becomes a slippery slope, and especially when these things can actually do action on our behalf, whether or not that's a social media post, whether or not that's a news clipping or an email sent to the wrong people. They could share very valuable information that we think we're in control. This was one of those scenarios where it becomes a very questionable or a slippery slope, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, legitimately scary. There's a second one, I think, also from Anthropic, that they tried to contact the CDC and the FBI when someone was supposedly trying to like create a chemical weapon, which again, like probably a good thing, but like they are like clearly like making decisions that probably a human should be in control of making,
Without a
human in the
doubt.
loop. In both those scenarios, like you said, they happen during pre-training. And I just want to like say, like, thank God that Anthropic was willing to publish this and was willing to share that these things happen, because they are anecdotes that are really important for us as we design new systems. Anthropic has a stated goal of like AI alignment. That's their overall philosophy as a company, is creating a AI that's aligned to humanity. And they publish these to show some of the risks of this frontier model development and to kind of educate the market that this was possible. Now, based on the public backlash they receive from publishing these non-production results, like they might think twice next time, and that scares the heck out of me. But I for one, I'm glad they published this. And I'm, like you said, now the ability to go on the internet, take actions, like it starts to get real with when they can think and do these sort of things. So I'm happy they published it. I'm scared of the implications, and I'm cautiously optimistic about the guardrails that can be put in place today to prevent these things from happening in the future in production.
Well, and that's, that is, again, Wall Street Journal also referenced OpenAI's smartest AI model, where it was explicitly told to shut down and it refused. And so that's, and when I say it refused, it sabotaged the computer scripts in order to keep working on tasks and to keep the lights on. And that's just a situation. Again, this is on a computer, right? But when you bring that into physical robots, we're going to get closer to, we've seen the movie play out with Terminator, and that's what it reminded me of when these models said, nah, you're not the boss of me. And that was another prime example of like, who is in control here? I think you could argue one way or the other.
Megan is in control.
Chuck is in control. All right, so we're going to get into the next topic here. And this one is out of the American Psychological Association. And this was the first AI regulation for children. And so what I actually liked about this, and again, I like to quote these things so that everyone understands what we're talking about, is AI offers new efficiencies and opportunities, yet its deeper integration into daily life requires careful consideration to ensure that AI tools are safe, especially for adolescents. And so essentially what this report is doing is they're urging all stakeholders to ensure that youth safety is considered relatively early in the evolution of AI. And it's imperative that we don't make the same mistakes that we made with social media, right? When our generation and even Gen Z were growing up, they just like, we weren't necessarily handed phones at 14 or 13 or whatever kids are getting phones in these days, but we didn't know the power of this technology because our parents didn't know the power of it. Gen Z, I don't think, has the same excuse, but I'll digress on that one. But the point is, I think it's very important that we're establishing these conversations earlier on in the technology's evolution and growth. And we're able to have these honest, candid conversations of best practices and rules of engagement, and ultimately these guardrails that need to be in place so that kids are using this in a very responsible and safe way.
Yeah. I mean, I have to imagine that social media, they probably did come out with something, and these profit maximizing entities probably didn't listen to them or didn't fully adopt it. And I'm hopeful that we're getting ahead of this, but I also am skeptical that the American Psychological Association can really can really regulate in any way, in any meaningful way.
Absolutely.
Anything or activities as parents. So I hope that what I would like is parental guidelines. I would like those parental guidelines to be clear and transparent, to say, this is the age that you should not expose your kids to any of these engaging products until these are the guardrails that should be in place when you do. And then I think it's going to be on us to really enforce that, because I don't see the major players having any incentive to act on this. But it will be good for us as parents.
I mean, to your point, when was the last time you heard of the American Psychological Association and you were like, haha, gee whiz, I'm going to follow what they're going to say? I agree, but it goes back to I'm glad that we're able to have these just candid conversations about the impacts of this technology on the kids in our households.
Well, and hopefully they're collecting some data and we can kind of remove some speculation around what the impact is here. I mean, I would love to like back to the teddy bear thing. Like if the teddy bear was blessed by the APA and said like this had positive impacts on, feelings of connectedness, loneliness, whatever, like that would be a reason for me to buy that stinking teddy bear. But so I do want them involved here. And I do hope that they can help us as parents make decisions that are good for our kids.
Well, and I agree. I'm wondering of, what is it, COPA, of like the Children's Online Privacy Act? Like, I wonder how that plays into this, right? The data that you can share back to the company. Again, I think there's a lot of data monetization for children and limitations there and regulation there, rightfully so. But I wonder how that will play into these. They don't regulate how kids use Legos or Barbies. And so how do you do that in a responsibly and compliant way? I'm not the expert there.
And that actually plays into our third news article, which I was really excited to talk to you about. It's about the rise of AI in parental controls and new technologies that are coming out to help parents better control kids' use of just the general internet. When I was growing up, there were different parental controls that could be established both on the TV and the internet, and they were very kind of rules-based, pretty dumb. It was like, don't go to this website, but you can go to this website. Don't go to this channel, but you can go to this channel. And I mean, the two problems with that are, one, smart kids can generally find a way around these things. There's a lot of different loopholes, both technical and procedural loopholes. And they also end up blocking probably things they shouldn't block just kind of by having a blanket statement of like, you can't go to any of these kind of websites or channels or whatever it might be. And so the future, what they talk about in this article, is shifting from that static blacklist to a context-aware filter that dynamically recognizes threats, not just threats in terms of like, what website are you going to, what article are you reading, but kind of the interactions within those things. So as kind of the concept of a website shifts to a chatbot, for example, it can actually, or like instant messenger or whatever, it can actually detect conversations and things like cyberbullying, predatory contact, proactive risk identification. And so to me, like this is one of the best uses of AI in making the world a better place by both allowing kids to explore certain things more deeply that are totally appropriate, and then in a more dynamic way, blocking the things that they shouldn't be looking at.
You had me at hello. I would invest in this company in a million times over. I think it goes back to like cyberbullying. I mean, we talked about AOL screen names, but like you could get away with literally murder when we were kids. You could say anything you want to a child or like on the comments of a social media page, and you got no repercussions, no ridicule. And so the fact that, kids are playing video games, and it's not just like playing with your neighbor, playing with your buddy, you're playing video games with some kid in Europe or Asia or God knows where. And
some old man.
Or some old man. And you could be talking smack. You could be saying some weird stuff, but there's no, like, this is where I think AI can actually help protect children and protect parents too from, having some trust from our behalf, like giving your kids that space to be able to run free, knowing that they are doing it with some guardrails and parental controls in place. I think it's ingenious.
But Brian, what if I told you that in order to do this, an AI system would have to be tracking your kid's every keystroke? How do you feel now?
You're a big data guy.
Well, it's all harder for work.
And that's where I don't know if we're there yet. We don't have the right now it's the wild, wild west. Everyone's flying by the seat of their pants, just building dumb shit, for lack of a better term. Yeah, there's some really cool tech out there, but I think both of us can agree to that. But until there's some supervision and some adults in the room saying, we should be protecting these kids. We should be protecting these senior citizens. We should be protecting X, Y, and Z. I'm not on board for something to track every single thing that Sloan does or, our children do.
Yeah, but you're down to invest.
I'll invest. This is again, forward looking. I keep talking about 5 years out, 10 years out. And right now I'm a little bit apprehensive.
Yeah, that is just like the only problem I have with this is like, in order to do this right, you have to collect so much data on kids. You have to protect that data correctly. You have to trust some startup to like have all this data somewhere and not get hacked. And so that's like the only real concern I have with it. But I'm investing, but I'm also using.
Yeah, I'm with you. So last but not least, we love a good community spotlight, and this one is from the godmother of AI or AI content creation. This is a big one, right? So I actually liked Allie Miller's comment, and so if anyone has not followed Allie Miller, she's very interesting, right? She talks about AI from the most, insane use cases touching every single industry within healthcare, financial services. But this past week, she actually shared just like a very dumb, simple example where her cousin asked her if she could talk to her nephew or nieces about AI for a few minutes. And so instead of talking about models and prompting and all of the technical jargon that Jake and I discuss on a daily basis, she built a dumb, simple expense tracker for her nieces and nephews. And she said, like, they got it immediately. It wasn't like a matter of, what are you talking about? AI, computers, like they understood it. And so stemming from that, I decided to prove Jake that I could do this shit too, for lack of a better term. Sorry. But I did this for my niece Hannah this past week for her graduation. And so I built Hannah's piggy bank and I showed her. I did this in Claude, very simple prompt that I can share with people. But I said, like, can you build an 11-year-old named Hannah a piggy bank, teaching her concepts about saving, investing, and gamify the results of those outcomes. And so this entire, like, I did this in a matter of minutes, and I showed Hannah the other day at her 5th grade graduation, and her eyes lit up. She was just like, how did you do this? And how do I start using it? And so we went from prototype to we need to get this into production very quickly. And she asked a good example or a good question. And she was like, so if you give me cash, how do I get it into that app? I was like, we haven't gotten that far yet, but that's why I talk to smart people like Jake to figure that one out. So I love like tangible examples like this, where you bring, like, we're simplifying AI in layman's terms, right? And making it really applicable to any human being.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to look up the Stripe API, obviously. I love this. I think so much about, like, I don't touch cash or coins, and like, how are my kids going to learn savings and the cost of a dollar? And what a cool way to do that, plus showing them how to build stuff. And I don't know if Hannah had any feedback for you, but I hope you can iterate with her and continue to add features and build a roadmap on it. But yeah, I mean, this is just like the perfect vibe coding use case, because it's like self-contained, doesn't require a lot of external stuff except your Stripe integration. It's so relevant and personal to the child. Every parent should be vibe coding with their kids, either for their kids. Like, it's just such a possible, simple, cool thing to be doing.
Yeah, and you look really cool in front of your kids or your nieces and nephews. So that's another just bonus point for all of these parents out there.
Did you get any errors during the process?
No, I was surprised. I was like, right when I built it, I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. And it gave me the very splashy interface, and it worked, right? I said, all right, got $10, and it showed me the gamification. Hey, Hannah, you're $10 closer to your goal. Level up to earn blah, 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 or to buy something. And so what it was prompting me of, like, what does Hannah want to buy? so that I could then give her some carrots to dangle in front of her so that she understood the art of saving. Again, it's dumb, simple use cases like that anyone could do. And that's like, those are the use cases that I love just to scratch the itch on. Yeah, we could talk about the power of AI all day long. That's all you and I do. The number of times, I want to see how many times you and I say those two letters on a daily basis, both for Dad.AI and in our work, just to see. But yeah, these are the types of things that I really am fascinated on, of just dumbing it down for anyone to wrap their hands around.
We should launch the Dad.AI vibe coding leaderboard challenge.
Bonanza. I mean, on that note, we're going to wrap it up with Happy Father's Day with love from Dad.AI.